Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime. I'm your host, as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and gaming, and let's talk about combat, exploration, and narrative. So, in this video, I want to talk about how these things are linked. I'll start by talking about combat and then branch out from there. So, I'm a big fan of math. I'm a big fan of gaming, and while I play games from like all over the place, and I like to experiment and take some chances. I am a big fan of games that are action heavy, right? That have that combat element, and that's the focus, right? That's the star. Because there's some games where it's like it's there, but it's not necessarily star, right? Um, Either way, though, I like me some combat, and part of that is because it's just fun, right? If it's done correctly. But the other thing is, right? It's math, and it's one of those things where in my times like talking to people about math and how it's everywhere and then everything and how it is everything, gaming has been a useful way to talk to people about it, right? And combat in particular, it's been a great way for people to see that it's math, you know what I mean? And that's been great. And there's definitely been various games that I've talked about in various series, and especially with RPGs. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But the idea is like, so with combat, right, it can make or break a game where that's the focus, right? It sets the tone. It's math that you can just get creative with and explore, and then it's tied to, well, speaking of exploring, it's tied to exploration, it's tied to the narrative, and you see this in various games, and I mentioned RPGs, but that's also a big one too, right? So let's just start with what combat is for a lot of games, right? Because it's going to vary game to game, but the idea is more often than not, you're trying to stop yourself from going down to 0%, or your party. When you're trying to take down the enemy or enemies, like have their health go down to 0%. And it's something that's like mathematical in its nature. And it ends up being intricate for a lot of games because, right, it's a simple idea, but then like if you focus on RPGs for instance, and honestly this has gotten extended to several other games, but you have the idea like, hey, I have this idea like I'm trying not to go down to 0%, and I'm trying to get the enemy to go down to 0%, but then it's like, okay, so how do you do that, right? How are you attacking? How are they attacking you? How are you defending, and how are they defending themselves? So it's like you have ideas like, hey, well, I have these characters, they have their stats, right? And I have different weapons with different characters and different equipment that have like various effects, right? And so you might also have things like status effects and status ailments. And then so you have this general idea that I mentioned, like dishing out damage while trying to avoid taking and trying to go from start trying to keep yourself at like 100%, or at least at a minimum, try not to go down to 0% while trying to get your opponent down to 0%. So you have that basic idea, but then it expands because it's like, hey, um, I'm trying to dish out damage while trying to avoid taking it, but I could also try to recover from it if I do take it. And situation to situation, game to game, how that looks will vary. But no matter how it gets to you, it's math, and I dig that. And again, like in a lot of RPGs, it just shines so well. And again, this has been extended to other like genres, other games over time, and I just like it because there's a lot of math on the surface and still a lot underneath, and I dig it. And so you have that idea, right? And it's like having a combat system and how that functions and flows is crucial. It's crucial because, like, hey, if I'm playing a game and it's got that combat, I want that combat to be fun. I want there to be some depth to it, right? And some variety, ideally. And even if it didn't have like as much variety as you'd like, it has to be really good at what it does. And so there's an art to doing that, and it's like you can't really separate that math and that art, and I like that. And so as you're playing and as you're doing that combat, here's the thing: you can enjoy the combat for what it is. And it can be just great, and it can be the driving force behind why you're playing a game, but it does not end there, right? If a game does their job really well, it is very much tied to the exploration and the narrative of the world. And so you have the idea of combat, exploration, and narrative all working together. Here's how that's getting to you. So you have that basic idea with combat, right? And so in a lot of games, like again, I'm focusing on RPGs just because I really dig them, and it helps, I think, like see the point. But and again, some of these things extend to other games now, and a lot of things are blurred. Um, but the idea is like you're fighting different opponents, right? You're gaining experience points and leveling up, and you're increasing your stats and what you can do, and you're getting different items or getting different weapons. You're building up money and buying different items and different weapons and equipment and all that stuff. And you're practicing your resource management. And as you're doing all of that, right, you're exploring different environments. And there might be different parts of that environment that you cannot get to until you've leveled up or until you've reached a point in the narrative. And so you go about your business, right? And for that narrative, as you are exploring, as you are, you know, doing all the combat, you're unlocking different pieces of the narrative. And as you're unlocking pieces of that narrative, you're getting to explore even further. You're getting to level up in new ways or give different abilities and weapons and stuff like that, whatever the case may be. And again, it's going to vary game to game, situation to situation. But you have like this awesome link and everything's like feeding into each other. So it's just like combat is such a wonderful, beautiful thing in gaming. And it's just like it's tied to those other things like narrative and exploration, and then just like how the narrative is unfolding and how you're exploring. There's math at the core of those things as well, and I dig that. I dig that hardcore and just like the best games with the best combat. They have this working really well, and of course, like I think again about a lot of RPGs. I think about Final Fantasy for sure because I've played so many of those games, but I also think about like Nier Automata, for instance, because they just do such a wonderful job of blending everything together and getting you this just like wonderful variety in just everything that you do. Because right, like you're going around in that game and you're getting more powerful, you're getting more items, you're getting more money and all that, but you're attending to the main quest, you're attending to different side quests, and you're able to do more with those things as you explore, and you're able to explore better. Is your skills and power increase over the course of the game because you can handle your own in different situations and different areas that might have been difficult before, and everything's just working together, and it's like beautiful, uh, in also a very deliberate way where it still allows you to have fun and just make your experience your own. But that's not limited to Nier Automata. I just think that game does everything really well because it's just like yeah, it is my favorite game of all time. If you didn't know, but yeah, so combat, narrative, and exploration. Right, these are things that are all like I think beautiful in and of themselves, but they can work together in some really incredible ways that deliver just such an insane experience when you're gaming. And it's just like, I am for it. I'm all the way for it. Here for it. I don't know. There was a better way to end all that, but it is what it is. Game on.